My friends, when they learned I was on this journey, they're like, oh man, Mark, why does he want a penny pinch? It's kind of a lonely journey. Coming from immigrant parents, I had to be a doctor, that engineer or that lawyer. And I took the dental exam, didn't get in the first year. And I was living paycheck to paycheck. On the outward appearance, it looked like I was successful. I just recently leased a brand new luxury car. I was living in a so-called luxury apartment. So she asked me, hey, Mark, how come you don't have a house yet? But I said, I'm actually broke. I've been laid off 4 times, fired once, and I know that feeling. It's just like, you're not in control. I just don't want to feel that way anymore. Make small, sustainable lifestyle changes. I think dividends are great. It's awesome to just wake up to a passive income stream and surround yourself with great people. Believe in yourself, trust your gut, create a budget, save, and invest for the future.
Investors, welcome back to another go-round of Masters of the Market. This week, I am incredibly excited to have on with me Marc Kim, who is delivering a message here today of it is never too late. He went from almost nothing to millionaire status in just about 7 years. But heck, here to share that story with all of us is Marc Kim himself. So Marc, I first want to say thank you for joining us on Masters of the Market. And as I always do, I'll pass the first question right over to you and just asking you about your story and how you got to where you are today.
It's a pleasure to be here, Ari, and really honored to be interviewed by you. So I appreciate the time. Actually, when I started, it was really, when I was in school, in college, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do in life. And, coming from immigrant parents with a background of South Korean, I had to be a doctor, that engineer or that lawyer, right? You had to pick those three. And I decided, you know what? I want to become a dentist. So it's not as difficult as being an MD, but I'm still a doctor title. And I think my parents will be proud. And so, I studied that and I did psychology as my also second major. And I graduated and I took the dental exam, didn't get in the first year. And so I just started working. I had a passion in technology. Computers was kind of the wave of the future, and the internet was just slowly kind of beginning, right? AOL, Netscape. And I just started working in retail. And through that, just through kind of some mentors and networking, I just got various jobs and I decided to kind of work in that career field in technology. So yeah, that's how I started. And I was living pretty much basically paycheck to paycheck. I did not have any financial literacy. The friends that I hung out with, my family members, my relatives, I think money was a taboo subject, and it still is. I just never had any conscious awareness about money, about why I should be saving or should I be saving for a house. I was just kind of living day by day, literally. Fast forward to 42 years of my life, I had a conversation with a friend of mine because on the outward appearance, it looked like I was successful. I just recently leased a brand new luxury car, the new model with 19-inch wheels, and it was looking great. I was living in a so-called luxury apartment down in Los Angeles. And, I had like brand name clothes. So she asked me, hey, Mark, how come you don't have a house yet? I'm like, wow, that's kind of personal question. But I said, I don't have the money. I'm actually broke. She goes, what? And she said, how much do you make a year? And I'm like, I was kind of calculating. I barely broke over 6 figures at that time. So I was making 105,000. And in my mind, I thought I wasn't making that much. When I looked towards other people or my friends, they had nice cars, big house, a family. And I thought, in order to be having a lot of money, you need to make a lot of money. So like 200,000, 300,000. And when she found out that I was only making 105, she said, hey, you make a lot of money. And I said, I do. And that's when I perked. my years, and a light bulb came out, and I said, okay, then what's the process? How do you save money?
Wow. Okay. So I want to ask before I get to all these other investment related questions, when it comes to that mindset that you had previously, what was it that you think maybe kept you from actually getting your finances in order? Was it just like the allure of having it?
I would say I wasn't financially literate. I didn't know about money. I didn't know about how money can work for you, how, you're trading your time for money. You should turn some of that financial capital into an asset that turns into a passive income stream. A lot of the misperceptions about money saying that, hey, I need to have a certain amount, be making a salary in order to be saving. And also some self-limiting beliefs about myself. I think that made me live kind of an autopilot, right?
Sure, sure.
Without any awareness of my money, of what I'm spending it on, and if I should be saving, and even thinking about the future and investing.
Now, when you finally switch gears, so before I guess I'll ask this next question, net worth wise, right now, where you are today, what does that number look like? Where are we?
With everything with my real estate, I broke 1.2 and a couple $100. So I would say 765K
Okay.
is about in stock equities and 418K is in real estate.
Okay. Now, at that initial switch, if I'm not mistaken, you spoke a lot about fire. Was it the fire movement that captured you first to be like, okay, I'm going to shift gears, or were there kind of baby steps into fire?
Oh, great question. Yeah, it was actually baby steps. So it was actually just saving. I had a 2-year goal, right? And my friend who had that conversation with me, maybe she had ulterior motives. She was a realtor at that time. So I'm like, okay, we're gonna save money, and you help me. You transform my life. I've been budgeting, and I will buy a house. So 2-year goal was to save $30,000. And I'm like, ooh, that's a lot of money. Can I do it? So I created the budget and I tweaked it along the way. And after 1 year, or after actually 2 years, it became 55,000. So I actually went overboard. I saved more. And after another 2 years, so this was 2014, 2018, I had 110,000. So I was kind of ready to use that as a down payment for a house. I was living in Southern California at the time, so Orange County. I was looking at some houses with her, and it was interesting. The houses that I wanted to get was really I should get something around 300, 400,000 range. I
Sure.
was looking at 600, 700,000, 800,000 range. Instead of going a 2 bedroom, I'm like, you know what? What about resale value? Somebody, if I want to sell this later to a family, they don't want a 2 bedroom. They want a 3 bedroom. So wait a second, what about a 4 bedroom? And what about a corner lot with the backyard? So the price of the house is just getting a lot larger. And at that time, I wasn't sure what my future was with my company. I was working with them for 6 years. They had some hard times, some challenges. So I kind of saw the writing on the wall. So it's a little volatile at that time. Do I want a 30-year mortgage? And so I stepped back and I try to figure out, because I had 110,000. It was like a baby to me. So how do I protect this baby and how do I grow it? And one of my friends, I call him Rich Mark, and I'm poor Mark. He gave me some fire blogs and he prefaced it. These are funny blogs that you might want to read. I don't subscribe to it all, but here you go. Said Mr. Money Mustache, go curry cracker, retire by 40. So I read all of it. And that just kind of led me to that rabbit hole. And I read a lot of Reddit comments on investing. I talked to a lot of people on Instagram and like Personal Finance Club, Jay Millennial, Tay's Journey. And they were very eager to answer a lot of my questions for free. So I said, this community is awesome. And then I just started diving in. 2018 was when I bought my first stock, and it was Amazon.
Quite a good stock to just dive in on.
Yeah,
Looking
because
back.
I understood it. I've experienced their customer service, and I might not know a lot of their fundamentals or earnings. I'm not too big into that, but I know what a good company is. So
Sure. So, all right, you got into fire. You started, you down that fire rabbit hole, and you continued to double down on savings initially, and then you jumped, now it sounds like, into stocks and investing, first up with Amazon. Let's talk a little bit about your portfolio and what type of investor you are today. So, if I were to ask you right now, Mark, define yourself as an investor, what's that definition?
I would say it's a mixture between index funds, the total stock market, and the S&P index. And the other half would be dividend growth investing and a small portion of growth stocks.
Exactly, kind of like my portfolio, which I love to hear. What's your portfolio makeup these days? How many index funds do you have? How many holdings in your portfolio? If you could walk us through some of the stocks that are in there, maybe some of the heavy hitters, top, 2 to 3.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got four buckets. I've got a rollover IRA. So I kind of merged three old workplace 401ks and I got into Vanguard. And, you know, it doesn't matter, Vanguard, Charles Schwab, or Fidelity, whatever your preference is. And I bought the VTAX, which is similar to VTI, the total stock market. And I bought a little bit of bonds. So I would say 92% is VTAX and 8% is bonds. A little aggressive, I think, for my age range, but I'm happy with it. I sleep well at night. And I have a little bit in HSA, about 13,000. And my individual brokerage account, I have about 334K. And I have a Roth IRA, which is about 56K. So that's about 765 if I do the math correct. But in my individual brokerage account, I would say I have about 72 individual stocks. I know it's a little bit, it's a lot for me, and I'm trying to kind of simplify that. It's a work in progress. And I have about seven ETFs like JEPQ, JEPB, SCHD, VOO, VTI, QQM,
Okay.
and the rest are individual stocks. Yeah.
When we first started talking, right, it was like it's never too late. And now here as you are today, right, from 42 right into you walked your way there into millionaire status. You just got started. And I want to talk a little bit about that mindset shift that you had and how did you know? So you picked Amazon. I mean, Amazon's not a dividend stock, it's not an index fund, but you went with Amazon. It's a growth player. I guess I got a question here for you. Why not just go all growth?
Yeah. I was nervous. Even when I bought Amazon, I was nervous because I didn't really understood the stock market at that time and the volatility. And before that, I thought it was just gambling, right? If you're not educated, you have a little bit of ignorance of what it really is. And so as I just kind of dipped in slowly, right? The products that I've used, right? Microsoft, I use Excel, PowerPoint, and I did what else did I do? Procter and Gamble, right? I used their toothpaste and deodorant. So just things that I just common sense wise, Target, I shop at Target all the time. So just common sense. And then as I learned about index funds, that's when I started shifting a little bit more into index funds because as JL Collins talked about it, it's self-cleansing and you have the high performers that move the index up. You have the low performers that they will, actively kick out and bring in some new ones. And then the passive fund manager will, passively mimic the index. And over time, which I didn't understand at that time, I read it many times. Oh, the compounding effect. Oh, yeah, compounding interest over time. But to actually experience it in a 4-year span where it was up at the COVID crash, man, my stomach hurt. It was like negative. I was like, oh my gosh, is this the right strategy? What am I doing? I'm like, you know what? Relax, breathe. You studied it, you researched it, just believe in it, have faith. And it slowly came back up and it marched way up. And I saw the compounding effect. And for example, my rollover IRA, I've contributed, I think, 234K, but within 4 years, it grew to 127K.
Wow.
And I didn't put in any other money. I didn't contribute anything. It's just the dividends and the reinvestment of the dividends and the growth of the capital. The compounding effect is huge, just in a little over 4 years. So imagine 10 years, 20 years.
Yeah, power is all there. It's what got me started with dividend investing. And actually, before I got into individual dividend stocks, I was mainly in VTI because it was a safe play, and dividend stocks for me are safe plays. So it was almost a no-brainer to go from ETFs into dividend stocks. But when I look at, and I get a lot of the comments too, right? Oh, if you go dividends, right, you might as well just focus all on growth because you won't become a millionaire that fast, if you're going into dividends. Then I get a story like yours, right? And it's like, well, no, it all could be done. And so I'm curious to know on your route to where you are today, how many roadblocks were there or mental barriers were there that you had to really break through? Because even now you talked about like finally after a while you saw the compounding effect. But what was it like before you saw the compounding effect? Did you have a lot of like, I want to almost say sleepless nights, like what I'm doing is ridiculous. Maybe it's not working. Maybe I should shift strategies.
Yeah, yeah. And speaking of dividend stocks, I did forget to mention that, I started a dividend portfolio and I actually kind of copied one of the bloggers. So a lesson learned, his journey is different, my journey is different. And so, it was a good thing though. I started and then I learned from some minor mistakes. I think dividends are great. Psychologically, it's awesome to just wake up and you see a dividend that hit every other day. I'm just waking up to a passive income stream. And that's something that I didn't have to trade my time for. That was so powerful. And that was very motivational. So, yes, I have a large base of index funds, but my other strong base is dividend growth stocks. And I'm trying to grow that into a larger pile. And it's a work in progress because I guess I'm in early or mini retirement, and my plan is to travel for 2 years. So I have just kind of have to tweak that portfolio, sell some growth shares, pour it back into higher end dividend stocks like BDCs and REITs. And but some of the roadblocks I had was just my friends. When they learned I was on this journey, they're like, "Oh man, Mark, why does he want a penny pinch? And what is he doing? You got to live for today, YOLO, right?" So trying to figure out that balance of, yeah, you got to live for today, but you also have to be wise and save for your future. So a lot of mindset shift there, and people saying, "Oh man, he's so money hungry." I was like, no, I think having money is just a tool to solve problems and to have your freedom. I just stuck to my game plan. I read books, I listened to various podcasts and YouTube videos, hours of them. And I said, this is what I believe in. And I just kept to it. And when the COVID crash hit, yeah, it was a little hard, but stuck to it. And I think it was like November 2021 was when I just passed my 50th birthday. It was 7 years into the journey. My company at the time, we weren't doing so well. And so I just thought, I read Financial Samurai about how to negotiate a severance. I'm like, I'm not getting any younger. I just turned 50. I had a couple of friends pass away. And I said, you know what? Instead of talking the talk, let's walk the walk. And so I negotiated the severance, and I pivoted and I started traveling.
And while traveling, you're just strictly investing, or you had real estate at this time as well?
Yeah, the real estate, I actually got lucky. So that was my parents' home. A few years ago, my sister came to me and she said, "Oh, we might lose the house." I said, "What? What's going on?" Oh, so my dad had a home equity line of credit, right?
Sure.
In tune of 67,000 in debt. And he was paying interest only payments for 15 years every month. I had to read into it. And, I was kind of knee deep knee deep into my fire journey, and I was building momentum. And man, this was like another punch in the gut.
Yeah, I was gonna
So,
say.
so it took me a few days. I had a family meeting with my brother and sister, and being a nerd that I am, I did a PowerPoint presentation, and I kind of laid out a roadmap of how to tackle this debt. And so, with the help of my sister and a majority of my funds, I sold a lot of my shares, and we aggressively attacked this debt. And in 2 years, we got rid of it. And
Wow.
when I got rid of it, my dad's like, "Oh, by the way, we're going to give you the title to this property." So I got very lucky.
Now I gotta ask because even when you spoke about your friends approaching you and saying, "Well, Mark, are you a little bit too strict there? Like relax a little bit, right? Live a little bit more." And then even now you mentioned the word aggressive, right? You had to get really aggressive on paying down this debt. Fire movement almost requires you to become financially aggressive. How do you know when it's too much?
That's tough. Like because when I first started, I was had a 0% savings rate. Then I started with 26, then 36, was like 42, 56. And during COVID, I think I was saving as much as
Wow.
85%. But I felt it wasn't that restrictive. I just use it as a guideline. I use it as analogy like wearing a pair of skinny jeans, right? It's kind of tight on you, but you have some movement to move around in those jeans. You can stretch. And
Sure.
so I had a secondary emergency fund. And so if I went over the budget and if I decided to go more on the YOLO side, like I would like to travel and I went over the budget, I would use that secondary emergency fund to cover that. And then the next month I would fill up that secondary emergency bucket. There 85% was tough. And so now I knew, okay, I can use that as a guideline and kind of keep it around. I think 50% is good for me.
Sure.
So
So
I
you almost
dropped it down a little bit.
you almost have to find just through trial and error, like where you're comfortable or what makes sense. Like
Yeah,
maybe perhaps
absolutely.
if you really love coffee, it's okay to go have a coffee.
Yeah,
And
sure. Yeah, sure. I mean,
going out to meals with friends. I feel like a lot of people, and I myself, am guilty of this earlier on. When I first learned about fire, it was so exciting that I said, this savings rate, let me keep bumping up. And the more I bumped it up, the less I did, which I had a goal, right? And I had my financial goals set and I was hitting them. But at the same time, you almost got to ask yourself the question of how much is too much.
yeah, absolutely. And even I guess it's a happiness factor, right? When you go too far above, are you happy? If you're not happy, then you need to go dial it back down and then focus on your values. Like when I first started, I didn't know anything about my values. I didn't know what I liked. And so as I tweaked the budget, I started learning, oh, I like to travel. I like to explore. Let me pump my resources there. I don't like to shop. So let's cut the shopping budget down. Hey, I don't like to dine out as much. Let's cut the dining budget and let's go pour more into groceries. Let me learn how to cook more. It's healthier for you as well. It's a lot cheaper. So,
Where would you recommend someone starts? Let's say, you have a beginner investor, someone maybe that's looking into fire. They don't know where to start. They don't know really. I mean, if you want to call it for a spade, like where you were, right? It was like, I don't know what to do, where to go.
yeah, that's a great question. I would say they overcome any misperceptions about money. So just become financially literate. Number two, I would have a kind of a savings goal. Like you really need to save money. If you have no money, you have no money to invest. So save money. And the only way to save money is to create a monthly budget. So know what's coming in after taxes and know what's going out. And from there, you could control what you can control is your expenses. So learn how to kind of decrease it. Maybe you can cut some of your subscriptions. Maybe you could, instead of dining out, cook a little bit more. And so to kind of decrease your expenses. And then secondly, I would focus on increasing your income. So maybe your skill set, your experience, negotiating a raise, maybe starting a small side hustle and increase that income. And there's like a gap. And as you increase that gap, I would use that money to invest into the market or invest into real estate, whatever floats your boat. Just
Is,
invest into an asset.
is there a golden emergency savings number that you would recommend before someone even gets invested?
Some people say start with 1,000. Some people say 3 months, 6 months. I would say, if you haven't been saving anything, I think start with $1,000 and then start investing. Maybe if you have an employer sponsored 401k, get into that up to the match. I really like Roth IRAs. All the growth is tax free. Open up a Roth IRA, start there, and then if you're really into fire, then maybe open up an individual brokerage account.
All right, now you started with Amazon, that first stock. Would you recommend an investor jumps right into the market and starts doubling down and scoring, individual stocks, or would you actually recommend the alternative, which is where you are kind of more today, where you lean into the ETFs and indexes?
Index fund. So it's a broad base, it's fully diversified. You have a slice of every business. Buy one share, buy two shares, buy a fractional share, and get into that. And then on the side, as you learn more about the market, learn more about the companies, and maybe the products that you use every day, like look at your clothes, look at your toothpaste, or look at your car, focus on those companies, and then you can buy some individual companies. But start off with a broad-based index fund, either the S&P or the total stock market, and you get fully diversified.
Now, looking back, I almost feel like I know your answer to this one, which maybe you probably would have wished you got started earlier. So we'll pump that one to the side. And looking back on your journey, I'm curious to know what you think was arguably one of your biggest mistakes on this journey and what you would have done differently.
Oh, starting from 42?
Yeah, say,
Yeah.
because in which case I feel like you would say, I wish I got started, 20 years prior, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's number one, but we could talk about that later. But if I had to start at 42 again, I was saving for 4 years straight, and that money was in a high yield savings account. I would have, when I reached my emergency fund, I would have invested that money immediately. So probably after this first year, I would have had 3 years a head start than what I had now.
Now I'm curious though, what do you think the most common mistake is?
Here's one, like when you talk to your friends or when you're on a internet website, maybe Reddit, and there may be like a hot stock, it's increasing in price and you don't know too much about it. You don't have any conviction about it, and you decide to go buy it because your friend said so. So I think just doing a little bit of due diligence and researching a little bit and figuring it out if this is the right company for you on your financial journey. Are you into dividend growth stocks, or are you into pure growth stocks, or is it speculative? And just make sure that you understand what you're investing. I think that's one of the issues I think I faced back when I started, when they say, hey, here's a stock, Tilray. It's like, oh yeah, it's a marijuana stock. It's becoming legalized. And then I invested a lot into that, and I lost a lot of money. So, but as long as you make small mistakes, you're okay. You learn from them and you grow.
Sure. This is what I always like to say is it's almost that university of hard knocks approach where it's like what's required is the initial payments of, your mistakes. So I too have a boatload of them where investing in the hot stock and then I lose money. I'm like, oh, I probably shouldn't do that again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like now I've been learning to sell some of my losers. Like I've been holding on to them, and they were every time I looked into the portfolio, when I saw the negative, like negative 99%, oh, that just mentally was really bad for me. And I was holding on for a couple of years, and I'm like, why? I know this is not a good company. And so I just did a tax harvest loss, got rid of it, and used some of that capital into a better performing company.
Sure. While on the topic of selling a stock, which I know is arguably one of the hardest things I think a lot of us longer term investors sometimes have to do, what are some of the red flags that go up for you that you know then it's time to sell the stock? I mean, aside from the stock coming down, which is the first red flag.
Ooh, that's really tough because I still have some in my portfolio that I perhaps need to sell, but I'm holding on to them. So I think you just have to, again, do your due diligence, read up on it, and see what's going on. Is it just, dipping for a little bit, and do you think there's a future for it? I've had a couple of stocks that it's been going down, and it's I think down to a penny. So I think you just have to figure out when it's not a good stock, you need to get rid of it quickly and stop holding it onto it. Yeah, but
Sure.
it's a work in progress for me because I still have a hard time selling it. But if you sell it at any time, you should be happy. It's like, hey, I sold it. I don't care if it goes up or it goes down. I'm happy with this sell right now.
Is there a way for an investor to really come to understand themselves as an investor? Like it sounds like throughout your period of investing, you've really had the ability to discover who you are as an investor, a process and a strategy. You may have even changed strategies, right? And you did. You went from that, first stock with Amazon and then into dividends and ETFs, and now you really have a set strategy. Can you walk us through that over the years, that shift that took place?
Yeah, yeah. So when I first started, I did the dividend stocks, and then I kind of shifted into more total return, like growth stocks. So I sold a lot of my dividend stocks and for a profit, and then I poured my capital into growth stocks. And then it was January 2022. That's when everything dropped. And I'm like, oh, wow. Okay, I think I need to shift my strategy more into dividends. And so a lot of these stocks, I'm just kind of waiting until it goes back up. And I think they will. And then I'm pouring everything into dividends right now. I have another bucket, which is my rollover IRA, which is all index funds. And I think I will just withdraw probably like a 3.3 or 4% withdrawal rate there. So it's more of a hybrid approach. I would have a dividend stocks for my individual brokerage. And on my Roth, I have index funds, but now I'm shifting towards dividend stocks inside the Roth. And so I feel I'll have a mix of dividend stocks and then I'll have a mix of index funds. And I'll most likely within the 2 years sell most of my growth stocks.
Okay, so in your process of selecting these individual stocks, whether dividend or some growth that are in there as well, it sounds like at first your process was like, well, what do I use, right? The Procter and Gamble, look outside at the car that you're driving. What's your process like now, and how has it evolved? What metrics do you use? What are you looking at when it comes to stock metrics?
I would get a lot of recommendations by some of the people that I follow, and I would look at it. I would look at the analyst ratings, and I know I always take it with a grain of salt, but I look into that. I don't look too much. I'm not really that, financially oriented, so I could look at all the technicals and fundamentals, but, I may look at their earnings. I may see a company that's growing their dividend every year. It could be a dividend aristocrat or a dividend kings. I'll look into that and I'll look into maybe, hey, this makes sense. Like Medtronics, they do medical supplies, they do the pacemaker. They've been growing their dividends every year. So just basic things that I would invest in. Right now, my part of my portfolio is high yield. So that one I'm still kind of learning, but so far so good. I'm squeezing quite a bit of income from them, and I'm doing fairly okay.
So this approach that you have now, right? It's like it's not so technical related, which I feel like for many of us is a sigh of relief because not a lot of people are inclined to go into the balance sheet and look at all the metrics. But now knowing your story, it's like, okay, no, it can be done, right? You could easily make it to where Marc Kim is these days. What would you say for those people who are sitting there maybe on the other end of these screens and saying, maybe I just need a financial advisor?
I think if you want a financial advisor, make sure you just get a fee-based financial advisor. Hey, maybe they charge you for an hour or 2 hours worth of their time. But I really think, there's a lot of content and stuff on the internet that's free. And if I can do it, you can do it. It's really, really simple. Just read and listen, and you can make your best educated decision based upon that. Ask questions, and then from there, you can go to Reddit, maybe ask a question there. You can read all the comments, and you could just make the best educated decision for yourself. I think that's the best way. But yeah, having a financial advisor, if you want that, I think as a fee basis, that's great. If you want a mentor or a coach, if you want to accelerate that process, I think that's fine to have as well. But for me, I just don't like paying anybody for that because I really care about my money more than anybody else. And I think I can do it. And it's still, I'm 52 now, and I'm still kind of tweaking the portfolio, but I have faith that I can make it work.
Now, when you started building your portfolio, okay, so now you have this portfolio with almost, I think you said 70 plus stocks in there, individual stocks. Would you recommend to have a portfolio with, boatloads, dozens upon dozens of stocks, or would you recommend that an investor, go on the other end, maybe pick 10 stocks, 15 stocks?
Simplicity is the best. Simple is better. And if, I'm helping some people out right now. So we started with index funds as like the half of that percentage of their portfolio, and the rest we'll pick some individual stocks. So they have about 5 to 10. I think that's a great way to start. 5 to 10 individual stocks, and then the other base is a total stock market or S&P index. As they get more educated and more experience, and if they want to add to the portfolio, I think I would probably like to shrink mine down to about 30 to 40.
So a good window of manageability, if you will, is probably 30 to 40 for you.
Yeah, imagine, because I'm managing my sister's portfolio and her Roth and her individual. So imagine doing both of those with like 70 stocks over here, 60 stocks for her. It's tough.
Sure. I want to toss this question out to you because it seems like, you're able to travel and you're living off some dividends, but there's now this other argument that's out there. That's quite an interesting one where some people say that it's better to have monthly paying dividend stocks versus the others say, no, 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 it's quarterly or it really doesn't matter. What is the Marc Kim take?
It doesn't matter. Yeah, some of the monthly pairs is nice. It's consistent. They're going to pay every month, but as long as you could kind of budget accordingly, you're fine. So it doesn't matter.
Now, budgeting is something I think I've heard you mention a few times, and I think it's arguably one of the hardest tasks that an investor has to perform before getting invested into the market, especially when that kind of knowledge base of finance is not there, that personal finance knowledge base. What was the budget that you used when you first started? How did you start budgeting?
Budget is crucial because you really, managing your finances. So it's like running a company. If you don't know the ins and outs and money coming in, your profit, you really have to know that. So when I started the budget, when we had that conversation, it was actually written down on a legal notepad with a pencil. I wish I saved that, but I threw that away because I turned that into an Excel spreadsheet the next day. You got to know what you're spending your money on. You got to be more aware, and I would say more conscious. And if you say your values is traveling, but you look at your shopping budget and it's very high, maybe your more values, you're valued more on shopping or on shoes. So I think budget's very critical. And another concept would be paying yourself first, because when I get that gross pay and I get my net pay, I see like the FICA taxes, federal, and maybe the state tax. It's already taken out of my paycheck. So the government pays themselves first. So why should I should pay myself first as well.
Okay, I want to understand your take on when you're just beginning the journey, the investment journey, and you perhaps go onto YouTube like a lot of us do. And I think you went towards the blogs, the fire blogs. How in the world does one know who to trust?
Wow, it's you don't trust anybody. You really take everything with a grain of salt. Yeah, that's why I like to listen to all types of videos and ask tons of questions with my friends. I would particularly with my friends who have made it, who who've done it. They walk the walk, they talk the talk. And I would like to, listen to them a little bit more, but ultimately it's your decision. So you really have to discover and have faith in yourself. And then as you're in the journey, you kind of learn along the way and you'll make a little bit small mistakes here and there. And that's how you really learn.
And I want to follow that up with a question here of if you were to look back at yourself, say good 20 years back, and you were able to whisper into your ear, Mark, do X, Y, and Z now, so that Mark 20 years from now will be in a better position. What would be some of the things that you would include in that conversation?
Surround yourself with great people, believe in yourself, trust your gut, create a budget, a monthly budget, save money, and invest for the future and invest just small amount. $50, $100, 150, open up a Roth IRA and start there. And, maybe not having a $1 million milestone, maybe having a small milestone like, hey, let's save $10,000, celebrate that win. Next one would be 25,000 and then the 100,000. And even fire, the concept, maybe not even thinking about fire, but just thinking about saving money and investing small and investing wisely, right? Have a long-term mindset. And I think society today, and with a lot of my friends, they're into immediate gratification, convenience. They want quick money and they don't understand the value of kind of the discipline, the journey of just going year by year, month by month, and investing wisely and letting it compound and grow, and reinvesting the dividends can do a huge amount of profits for you in the long run. And think about it. I remember it was like 2020. That was like 4 years ago, but with the blink of an eye, that was 4 years ago. And just imagine putting that discipline into work, and within 10 years, it'll be a blink of an eye.
Your journey was literally a blink of an eye. I feel
It
like,
was. Yeah.
42, just starting millionaire status, take two, 52. But you mentioned just something now that stood out to me, which was celebrating your win. And admittedly, my girlfriend could probably share this one better than I can, but I probably have an issue with celebrating all the milestone wins because I'm so focused on that long-term goal that sometimes it's like, oh yeah, what is a win? I want to just overlook and just keep going. Can you talk about how important those little wins are to actually celebrate and enjoy?
Yeah, it's important because it's kind of a lonely journey, right? I mean, all your friends, they never heard about fire, it's or investing. So, you know, just it's lonely, and sometimes, you've in the middle of the journey, you're like, man, am I happy? Am I doing this right? Should I be doing something else? Maybe I should just go YOLO it. You have a few friends pass away. You're like, man, uh, will I live that long enough to to, to experience this hard work? And will it just go down, pass down to my nephews or nieces? And so, celebrating the small wins, and it doesn't have to be a big celebration. You can also celebrate by buying more dividend stocks.
That's
So
certainly
yeah,
my celebratory win. More stocks, more.
yeah, but it's crucial because it's very psychological too, and you talk about mental well-being, and you need to really celebrate. So it could be a small thing. It could be like going out for coffee or boba, you know, or maybe doing a trip, maybe doing a hiking trip, something small, not expensive, but really up to the individual.
Now, quite a few times throughout our talk, you've mentioned some big moments, 2020, you've mentioned a couple times. And that's really from the macro lens, right? Like how much macros can influence how we're investing or when we're investing. How do macros influence your strategy? Do they play a role? Do you factor macroeconomics in at all? Or is it just, kind of close your eyes, keep investing, keep doubling down and disregard the macros because this is a long-term game?
See, I'm such a regular Joe. I don't even know what macro is. So do you mean like kind of the bigger economic picture or?
Yeah, like for example, like the talk right now, interest rates, right? Interest rates, when are they going to come down? Some are saying June, July. Some, are waiting for them to actually come down before investing, which is missing out on time, right? Some people literally use macros to time the market itself, which I don't advise
Uh,
doing.
yeah.
But I take it you probably don't use them too much. But I'm
Yeah,
curious, like when you
I
see the headlines in the news, like does this scare you at all?
yeah, I read the news because on my Fidelity website, I see all the news come up. But I do understand a little bit that hey, the interest rates will be falling. I don't know when, but eventually will be going down. And I understand that hey, perhaps the mid-size and the small-size companies, when the interest rates moderate, they will kind of move up a little bit more than the S&P 500. So I'm like, okay, maybe my VTI would be a better investment than my VU right now because I feel like, oh, maybe VU is a little overvalued. But I look at that, but I don't really make my decisions based on that. I just kind of be consistent monthly contributions and just long term because I know there will be some volatility along the way from month to a year, but over the course of 2 years, 5 years, 7 years, I should be okay. Yeah.
Sure. Now, this question popped up on a couple of videos and a couple masters of the market chat comments, and people are curious to know whether it's better to invest a lump sum of money right from the get-go or to pump the brakes and take that lump sum and divvy it out so you're going to dollar cost average it over the span of time. What's your take on that?
It doesn't matter. I've done it both ways. So on my Roth, I've done three lump sums in January and I maxed it out. And I've done in my Roth, I did a dollar cost average, like 500 a month for 12 months. It really doesn't matter. On my rollover IRA, I dumped in 166K all at once. And it dropped a little bit and then it just moved up for a long time, it just kept moving up. And then on my other last dumpage in my rollover, I had 68K. I put everything into VTAX January 2022. And then it dropped like I think 70, 80K. It just dropped. It kept dropping. And so now as I look at it, I'm way above what I had. So I had about 338 and now I'm at 361. So I think it really doesn't matter if you do a lump sum or you dollar cost average. It really doesn't matter. But I think the benefit of a lump sum would be stress factor. You don't have to kind of look at the market and say, oh, shoot, maybe I should put some in now. Oh, man, why did I put in now? I should have waited till another month. And then also you take advantage of the dividends. So if you can catch it, the first 2 months, you can catch that dividend on that third or fourth month on an index fund. Yeah.
Sure. Now, this process, investing, whether it's dividend investing, growth investing, you talked about budgeting, it requires saving and saving a whole lot of money. Where would you recommend that people start to, cut costs and actually save? Like, how do we, in order to get that lump sum to throw into the market or dollar cost average, whatever someone wants to do there, what's the saving strategy?
Yeah, that's another great question. I would say, make small, sustainable lifestyle changes. And or order to do that, do baby steps. So for me, I had to cut out the coffee at Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts. I cut that out. Very small, but it was like I was trying to build some momentum. I cut out the subscriptions, I cut the cord. Um, I started cooking more. So one item in itself is not a big difference, but you add all those up, like 5, 7, 10 items that you kind of cut and there's no decrease in happiness. And you could see a huge extra savings. So that extra savings you could invest. And then maybe focus on the larger expenses. I think the two largest one is transportation and housing. So especially if you're single like me, it's a lot easier for the housing aspect. But if you're locked in a mortgage, then what can you do? If you're really into fire, then maybe you can look at selling your house and maybe going to a lower cost neighborhood, or maybe just renting, maybe moving back into your parents' house for a little bit. But yeah, I would say start with the small stuff and build that up. And then as you get more confident, you can tackle on the larger ones. So when I started doing all the small stuff and I tweaked, the budget was getting great. And I'm like, how can I move the needle more? That's when I looked at moving out of my studio and getting roommates. And so it took me a year because, that's a big thing because it can be very stressful finding the wrong roommate and finding the wrong neighborhood. So it took me a year to find the right situation. And I got two roommates and I dropped my rental income expense from, I think it was like 1860 to 900. So that's like a raise, right? Without
Sure.
any tax implications. So that extra 900, I just put into investing. Then I looked at my car. My lease was ending. I was paying close to $700 on this car, and I decided to get a hybrid. And so not only did I save on insurance, gas, less car washes, less valets, all that savings went into my investing budget. So just take baby steps and just do what's comfortable for you. As long as you're happy, continue doing that.
And Mark, I have a fair mix of viewership out there. A lot of, young guns, right? Newer investors, maybe in their 20s, 30s. But then I also have a fair range of investors who are in their 40s, late 40s, in their 50s. It's actually one of the larger viewership groups, according to my data on YouTube. So I'm curious to know your take, especially from a man who began our conversation with "It's never too late." What would you share with those who are in fact saying, no, 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 it may be too late for me?
You're like 50 and over, I think you're screwed. No, I'm kidding. I really think it's never too late because I have a real life example with myself, starting at 42 and investing at 46, and I'm 52 now. So that was a quick turnaround. My sister, who just kind of did the minimum on her 401k, and I was trying to encourage her, she started, I think, around 54. So we opened up a Roth. And then another life example is my friend. She used to be a nanny for one of my friends in Atlanta, and she's 76 years old, and she had a ton of money in a brick and mortar bank, and she had a couple of CDs, and she had some accounts in Vanguard, and we just talked. I gave her some videos to listen to, and wow, she has a dividend portfolio that's spitting about 9,500 in dividends a year, and that's
Wow.
supplementing her Social Security. And yeah, so she's very happy. So she's 76. So I would say it's never too late. You just start. Like I was listening to Jeff's interview, just
Sure.
start now.
It's such simple advice. I feel like a lot of us don't get started because of an element of fear. And so I want to throw this question your way. When it comes to fear, how can an investor overcome that fear? And what does it take to overcome fear in the first place?
I think just being educated, so just learning, you don't want to have analysis paralysis, right? You're analyzing, and not jumping in. But once you have a little bit of that education, you read about it, you listen to audiobooks, whatnot, podcasts and blogs, and seen some of the real life examples, and just dive in. You could just tiptoe. And then from there, you could see how it goes. And then, I would say, 10 years later, you would just say, man, I should have put in more money.
Now, a lot of your answers, at least from what I've heard, right? It's like these baby steps, tiptoeing, small steps. Just take one step. Now, what would you say for someone who needs more motivation on this journey? How did you, Mark, keep motivated? Because it's a grueling road. And as you shared, right, there have probably been some sleepless nights where you're questioning if what you're doing is the right thing to be doing. Heck, life is short, right? So how do you stay motivated on this journey to actually hit millionaire status when you're, I don't know, 100,000s, away from actually hitting millionaire status? Maybe it's your 10,000. How do you keep that flame, that fire actually lit?
Yeah, wow, good question. I would say that, steadily kind of advancing in your goals and you're seeing the net worth kind of grow, you build kind of inner self-confidence, and that's motivating. Also to see like dividends come hit your portfolio. Like I would wake up and say, hey, Microsoft just paid you $29.25. I think that motivates me as well. And then also, like you said, I would celebrate. Sometimes I'll be more extravagant. I'll take a big trip, like I'll go to South America or go to Asia, and then come back and then splurge a little bit, and then put my foot on the gas and just grind it. But whatever you can find to motivate you, like for me, it was the freedom. It was always in my mind. I don't want to be beholden to any debts. I don't want to be beholden to an employer or a toxic work culture. I've been laid off 4 times, fired once, and I know that feeling. It's just like, you're not in control. And so I just don't want to feel that way anymore. And I just looked at the end goal was freedom, not the net worth, not the money symbol of 100,000 or 500,000. It's just like, man, this is freedom. I can do whatever I want. And I have the option and flexibility. If I wanted to come back to work, I can, but it'll be on my own terms. And so
Sure.
I would say that overarching goal of freedom would be the motivating factor for me.
Write it on your mirror. I don't know, keep a post-it with you. Mark, if you were to give us all one piece of advice, what piece of advice would that be?
I would say be a lifelong learner. And I think I saw one of your interviews and you said, be curious. I think that's like very similar, right? Be curious, be a lifelong learner, have a growth mindset, and just learn and learn every day and focus on you. Don't compare yourself with anybody else. Just focus on you.
I love that. That's the vision, that's the path. Now, before I wrap up with arguably one of my favorite questions to ask investors, I actually want you to share with all of us where we can find you because Mark, the Savior, is out there. Mark, if someone who's watching this interview wants to reach out to you to talk about fire, to talk about finances, how to get started, maybe they're in that crowd saying, no, 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 it's too late for me. But then I heard this guy, Mark, speak. Where can we find you?
Yeah, you can find me. I have an Instagram page. My handle is Marc, M-A-R-C, the life saver. I don't think I'm saving lives. I think I'm just I just like to save money. So Marc, the life saver.
There you go. So I want to conclude here with my favorite question. Now, every single Masters of the Market chat, Marcus, I'm sure you know, I'm able to gift fellow investors with money that does not exist of $10,000 to invest into an individual stock. I'd love to know if I were to gift you with $10,000 right now, what individual stock would you invest it into and the rationale behind that investment?
Wow, that's tough because like what metric am I going to use? Like, is it going to be, do I want safe? Do I want dividends? Do I want growth? And I have to hold the stock for 20 years?
We'll say the long haul, whatever that may be for you. Because actually, the last investor who popped on with me, the long haul for him was a year. And then he shared he would have a different strategy. So, whatever your long term definition would be, what stock? And I'm assuming it would be probably maybe a decade, right? Plus for you,
Yeah,
longer
yeah,
term
I
investor.
think that's a great time span. So 10 years. Well, there's a lot of stocks I would pick, but I've had experience with NVIDIA chipsets many years ago when I was contracting for Microsoft. They had this Microsoft Zune player. It was an MP3 player, and it was competing with the iPod. Obviously, iPod won, but that MP3 player was super fast. It was like so snappy, and it accelerated as I moved. And I said, why is this so fast? And they said, it's the chipset. I said, who makes this chipset? NVIDIA. And so
Wow.
I had that in the back of my mind. I've always wanted to own it, and I finally do own a few shares. But I think with the data centers and with AI wave and the trend, and they have a good 5 to 10 years of growth, I would select NVIDIA.
You heard it here first, investors. We have Marc Kim on with us. Two messages, at least that I caught on to, which is it is never too late. And literally $1 million in 7 years. It all can be done. All questions to Marc, go to his Instagram to find him. Marc, I want to say thank you for joining me on Masters of the Market. Certainly insightful for me. A lot of fire tips and tricks here for all of us. And investors, until next time, we will see you all there.